this perilous journey, I tackle a road that's made completely of ice. I'm Marsh Mukhtari, and the only thing separating me and my 2.5-ton pickup from the bottom of the ocean is a layer of ice.
What the hell am I doing here?
I can hear the ice cracking as I race the sun to my destination.
I really feel like going around any of these bends, my backhand could easily slide out of control.
If anything goes wrong, I could be trapped on the ice in the dark. There are no lights whatsoever, and obviously no lane markers. And in these brutal conditions, frostbite can take hold in minutes.
Me, my face is frozen!
Every year in Canada's Northwest Territories, when fall turns to winter, lakes and rivers across the territories transform into a network of frozen roads.
From this perspective, I can get a real clear indication as to what the road is going to look like.
I'm north of the Arctic Circle in the dead of winter, and the temperature is a mind-numbing 36 degrees below. I'm here to travel a road made completely of ice. It's the only way to haul supplies into the farthest reaches of Canada, and I want to experience it for myself. My journey begins in the town of Inuvik. From there, I plan to drive almost 160 kilometers on the frozen Mackenzie River. If I make it that far, then I must cross 30 kilometers of the Beaufort Sea, part of the Arctic Ocean. My final destination is Tuktoyaktuk, or Tuk for short. It's the northernmost community on the Canadian mainland and the hub of Canada's booming oil and gas exploration industry. To make this journey, I must cross some of the most forbidding landscapes on the planet. Before I risk the ice, I size up the dangers from the air with Arctic helicopter pilot Chuck Burke.
That's the river in its true glory.
In some places, the ice is only about 30 centimeters thick, and the water below is freezing. From November to April, over 1,400 kilometers of ice roads stretch across the region. For the isolated towns up here, these roads are a lifeline to the outside world. But they can be deadly. Out on the frozen Beaufort Sea, tidal shifts can send sections of ice jutting into the air without warning, sending my truck to the ocean floor some 10.5 meters below in a matter of seconds. If I were to take the plunge, the ice-cold water would immediately begin to stiffen my muscles, giving me only minutes to find a way out and get warm. In the last 5 years, 3 travelers have died after their vehicles crashed through the ice. I wonder if I'm really ready for this. This is an unpredictable and unforgiving environment, so preparation is key. I'm trusting this pickup with my life. It's got 4-wheel drive and an anti-lock brake system. And I'm hoping the powerful 8-cylinder engine will prevent me from getting stuck out here if I hit a snowbank. It also comes equipped with a grill guard to limit the amount of freezing air that passes over the engine. Local mechanics tell me that at these temperatures, minus 36 degrees, ice crystals will form in the diesel fuel and stall the engine.
I need to actually plug in the engine heater so that it doesn't freeze solid.
I'll begin my journey tomorrow, but while I have a few hours of daylight left, I want to get a closer look at the road. I asked retired Royal Canadian Mounted Policeman Jerry Kassoon to guide me on a test run just north of Inuvik.
The ice road is a result of the oil and gas activity in the Mackenzie Delta.
Oh, is that what it is?
Back in the 1960s, 70s.
So how far up here do we have to go to get onto the ice road?
Just past the red buildings up there. You see?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here it is. Wow, it's hard to tell the land from the ice. Why would anyone do this?
Between Tuktoyaktuk and Inuvik, there are no roads, right?
There's no roads, no.
Do you have any specific advice for me tackling this road?
It's good to try to stay within the speed limit that's posted. If it says 70 kilometers an hour, I think it's a darn good idea to travel at 70 kilometers an hour or slower.
Jerry is obviously a just the facts kind of Mountie. I think I'll take his advice and stay within the speed limit. I can't believe the size of the trucks that drive down this ice highway, supported by just a sheet of ice. Semis must keep a distance of at least 400 meters to avoid too much stress on the surface. As a truck moves along the ice road, its weight pushes the ice down, shifting the water beneath. This displaced water creates a wave under the ice. When the wave hits a weak spot, it can cause a fracture called a blowout that can be deadly.
Okay, you got a rig coming there.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that, got a lot of floor mats or something, you know? Yeah, so they got quite a load there.
You know, I'm hearing like cracks when he went past.
Yeah, the ice cracked, it's always moving.
Really?
Yeah, the ice is always moving, there's always some movement to it.
I've got to keep a keen eye on these big rigs. After a few final tips from Jerry, we head back to Inuvik. I'm ready to test myself, to see if I can handle the ice road. Tomorrow morning, I'll be on my own. I start out before sunrise. I can't see much as I make the transition from solid ground to Mackenzie River ice. The sun won't even appear for a couple more hours. In February, north of the Arctic Circle, we get about 5 hours of daylight. Leaving early should buy me enough hours of sunlight to make my crossing of the unstable tidal ice on the Beaufort Sea. I have about 190 kilometers to cover, so if nothing goes wrong, I should be able to make it by sundown.
This is unlike anything I've ever driven on before.
The traction is pretty good, surprisingly, but it's nice to remind yourself every now and again that this is ice and don't push it too hard. The Mackenzie River is 9 meters deep here, and there's nothing but darkness and ice for kilometers. There could be a break in the ice directly in front of me, and I wouldn't know it until it's too late. For these first few kilometers on the Mackenzie River ice road, I keep my speed under 70 kilometers an hour, so I can look for cracks in the ice. My visibility is about 8 meters, the length of the beams from my headlights, so I have little time to react to any obstacles. If a snowstorm were to blow in, visibility could easily go down to 0. Within the last 3 weeks, Tuk's been hit by 2 blizzards. In one of those storms, 75 km/h winds tore through Tuktoyaktuk, ripping roofs off houses and collapsing electrical towers. During whiteout conditions, it's recommended that you use your low beams. It's very similar to fog in the fact that if you put your high beams on, you're going to see far less. Many drivers have driven off the road and into the snowbanks onto the side. I certainly don't want to be stranded in the darkness. A few kilometers outside of Inuvik, I meet with Arctic adventurer Olav Falsnes.
Thanks for agreeing to tell me a little bit about how to winterize my car.
I've called ahead and asked him how to prepare for my journey. Olav's been to the North Pole 4 times. If anyone can help me survive up here, he can. Olav tells me my best bet, if anything goes wrong, is to stay close to the road and hope to flag down another driver.
In this country, you don't pass anybody by. You just make sure everybody's okay, because it's a matter of life and death.
But if there's no one else around, I'm on my own. And I need to be prepared to endure until I'm rescued.
We always recommend that you carry a survival kit, or at least food so you can sit on the highway for a couple of days.
If I'm trapped in my vehicle, my extremities will start to freeze from lack of blood flow. But food from a survival kit can buy me some time.
There's enough food here for 4 people for about 2 days in this kit here.
Wow. So what else we got in here?
Well, we have one of the very important things, and that's a survival candle. Now, this candle actually will burn and last and keep a car warm for 36 hours.
Without a lit candle, the interior temperature of my vehicle would drop to match the outdoor temperature in less than an hour. This is crazy.
There's a saw in here that you can use for cutting the firewood, a trap here for rabbits, fishing gears in here. We have some flares, a signaling mirror, waterproof matches, a stove with fuel in it so that you can melt snow, so you get something to drink. In cold weather, you dehydrate in a very short time.
I thought dehydration was only a threat in hot weather. But Olav tells me these extreme temperatures quickly freeze most of the moisture in the air, making Arctic air nearly as dry as desert air. Understanding this could save my life.
Well, thank you for telling me all of this. I'm certainly going to take a pack like this with me.
With the survival kit in hand, I'm back out on the road.
It's about 11:30, and the sun has only just poked its head out over the horizon.
This means I must now race the sun to tuck. I still have 113 more kilometers before I reach the Beaufort Sea. It doesn't seem natural to be cruising over this 9-meter deep river. What's that in the distance? Every year, these barges retreat up the frozen Mackenzie River so they aren't damaged by harsh Arctic storms.
It's just an odd experience. These boats came all the way in from the Arctic Ocean, and now they're frozen solid.
The ice road widens here.
I'm just going to get used to the vehicle for a moment. See how it handles, see how much I can accelerate, see if the wheels start to slide as I go around corners. Now, the rule of thumb on the ice road is to take your time. I'm doing around 45 miles an hour. Any more than that, and I really feel like going around any of these bends, my back end could easily slide out of control.
Drivers can lose control on an ice highway, especially at high speeds. For the moment, I'm able to navigate these gradual turns with some confidence. But When the temperature climbs too high, the ice begins to melt and a thin layer of water forms on the surface. When that happens, it's almost impossible to keep traction and stay on the road.
It's always a good idea to know how your vehicle will handle in icy conditions, so I'm going to purposefully put myself into a skid to see what might happen in an extreme situation. Alright, there's nothing behind me, nothing in front. Here goes. The key to this is to always remain calm. Don't slam on the brakes and allow the vehicle to gain traction. Once you feel the wheels gain traction, steer into it and then allow the vehicle to move on. And the manufacturer recommends that you just keep steady pressure on the brakes so that the ABS can kick in and stop you.
But transportation officials ask drivers not to stop on this highway. Passing vehicles can create momentary whiteout conditions. If you're parked on the road, fellow travelers likely won't see you until it's too late. Whiteout conditions also present a real problem for those being passed.
Now you can see the kick-up of snow when a car goes past. When you meet oncoming traffic in a situation like that, you literally have no idea where the road is. The side, the embankments all blend in together. So you just got to be very careful at those points.
As the sun gets higher in the sky and the glare becomes blinding, oncoming traffic becomes more and more difficult to spot. But the sun won't be up for long, so I keep pressing ahead. My goal is to make it to the Beaufort Sea with sunlight to spare. I've got 97 kilometers to go. Visibility, even in the middle of the day, is getting more and more limited.
I'm coming up to another vehicle and the exhaust fumes seem to linger in the air.
As exhaust exits the engine, it cools from over 120 degrees to negative 40 degrees in seconds. When it cools this quickly, the water vapors in the exhaust instantly turn into tiny ice particles that can hang in the air for hours, creating an ice fog.
It's very difficult to decipher where the sides of the road really are.
Combine that with the blowing snow, and it's hard to judge just how close I am to the truck in front of me. Oh, there it is. With temperatures this low, only around 5 hours of daylight, and the constant threat of a blizzard, any accident or breakdown can easily turn deadly. 2 weeks ago, officials closed this highway due to high winds and blowing snow. Mounds of snow created by these powerful storms can make the road impassable. The road's ideal width is 30 meters. This keeps the ice cold and solid.
Now the reason they make the ice roads so wide is because snow is actually an insulator. It doesn't allow the cold air to penetrate the ice.
Keeping the road clear of snow exposes the surface to cold temperatures. The wider it is, the more the surface is exposed. This thickens the ice and strengthens the road. Building and maintaining this highway is an extraordinary feat of engineering. After the river freezes each year, road crews first measure the ice. It must be at least 30 centimeters thick to support the average automobile. Then, they clear the snow. If a section of the road isn't thick enough, crews pump water from below and spread it over the surface. It quickly freezes and thickens the road. Road crews do their best to keep the highway clear. But at this time of year, the dead of winter, snowstorms make it hard to keep it plowed. Here, the road width is only 4.5 meters. I must remain alert. There's no telling when another quickly approaching vehicle will veer into my lane.
Oh, look at this truck going past.
That was close. I'm nearing the Beaufort Sea, the next leg of my journey. The road is smooth here, but as the air temperature warms, I feel like I'm constantly on the verge of a skid. It's hard to believe that in the summer, locals fish the river I'm driving on. This is my first time north of the Arctic Circle. And it's unlike anything I have ever seen. While it's an unforgiving environment for humans, some wildlife thrives.
Oh, look at that! Fox running across there. What is that? Yeah, it is. It's a fox running up ahead. It's such a beautiful sight. Oh, and he's stopped to take a look at me.
The fox is an incredibly rugged animal. It can survive temperatures as low as 50 degrees below zero. It lives in burrows and may tunnel into the snow for shelter during snowstorms. The wildlife in the Arctic is critical to natives of the area, called NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1. NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 have strong ties to the land, and they survive using centuries-old traditions like fishing and trapping. Trucks do bring food and supplies north on the ice road, but these goods are very expensive. Living off the land still accounts for about 70% of the average family's food, clothing, and other necessities. These survival skills can be a lifesaver. So far, I've made good time on the way to Tuk. It's only early afternoon. I leave the ice road to trek into the forest, what locals call the bush. I plan to meet an NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 elder 15 kilometers off the road. The path is completely impassable by truck, so I arrange another means of transportation, a snowmobile. But believe me, it's a much, much colder way to go. Any exposed skin quickly goes numb. My snowmobile weighs over 200 kilograms and can go over 130 kilometers an hour. These things are a necessary means of transportation in the bush, but can be dangerous, as I soon discover.
Oh, man!
I hit a huge snowbank and lose control. But I think I'm okay. Deep snowdrifts like the one I just hit seem to appear out of nowhere. In 2007, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police conducted 74 search and rescue missions, and 19 of them involved disabled snowmobilers. I arrive at Sam Lenny's camp.
Sam, how you doing?
Sam is an NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 elder who still practices many traditional ways of life.
What I do, I make the nails square.
He agrees to teach me a skill that could help me survive out here: ice fishing. He shows me a fishing lure made only from a bit of metal and a muskox horn.
This is how they used to make it.
Sam knows a good fishing spot a short trek down from his camp.
And it's What, about 2 feet down?
Yeah, about 2 feet, yeah.
Oh, look at that. We're through.
This is the way to do it. You let it down a little bit and then give it a little jerk, eh? Like that.
I'm gonna put my gloves back on. It's freezing out here.
Sam uses nothing more than a branch and a piece of string to form a fishing rod and a line.
You gonna try your luck?
Yeah, I'll try my luck. See if we can pull one of these little guys out here. And I've got the right technique, have I?
Yeah.
Tell me again what this is called.
Jiggling.
Jiggling.
Yeah.
So have I got a good jiggling technique?
Yeah.
After 45 minutes, I come up empty. Good thing I've got that survival kit in my vehicle. The most important thing is to be on the road while there's still enough light. I'm back on the Mackenzie River Ice Highway. It's about 113 kilometers to my final destination, the hamlet of Tuck, the northernmost community on the Canadian mainland, and I'm still 80 kilometers from the most perilous leg of my journey, the road over the Beaufort Sea. It's just me, the ice, and the cold. I've had this lone tree in sight for miles. Now once I pass the tree line, it means I'm halfway to the Beaufort Sea. This entire region is covered in permafrost, a 400-meter layer of soil and ice that remains frozen throughout the year. With the permafrost, harsh winds, and extreme cold, trees can't grow in this frozen landscape. It's like an Arctic desert. The only thing that's dotting this barren landscape are those pingos. Pingo is an NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 word meaning small hill. They take shape when one of the many small lakes in the area drains into the permafrost. Ice expands upward to fill this void. Over a period of years, a small round hill forms. Pingos are traditionally used by the NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 as vantage points to spot animals from long distances. They also rely on them to navigate. I can see why. There's really nothing else to go by. I'm over halfway to my final destination, the hamlet of Tuck, on the coast of the Beaufort Sea. Staring into nothing but the immense whiteness of this landscape is making my eyes weary. Snow blindness is a big concern in this environment. I can't allow myself to drive off the road and get stuck out here.
It says minus 34 degrees, but the thermometer must be close to the engine because it is definitely a lot colder than that.
I'm still making good time on my way to Tuck. But if something goes wrong, I could freeze without shelter. To learn one way to stay warm in this stark landscape, I connect with James Pokiak, an NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 guide and outfitter who braves the elements every winter when hunting for food.
The only way to survive a night in these extreme temperatures is to build a shelter NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 style.
So James and his son-in-law Robin show me how to make an igloo.
How's that block?
It takes a lot of practice to cut each snow block properly with saws and knives.
What kind of snow is ideal for building igloos?
Snow that's not too hard, not too soft. If you get snow that's too hard, then when you start shaping, it cracks and it breaks really easy. And then it has to have a good enough texture on it that when you join them together, they would help each other to bind.
James's mustache has turned to ice, and it doesn't even faze him.
That weighs a lot more than it looks. Okay. Right in. Oh, I see. So you're shaving down the side so it all meets together nicely.
I put them in an angle so that when we put them together, then they hold each other up.
Right.
Otherwise, if I cut it straight, then it'll fall back.
Oh, I see. So they're all supporting each other. And then I guess afterwards you just fill all this with snow.
Yeah. Afterwards, we go right around the whole perimeter, fill all this cracks together with softer snow, and then it really seals it.
Okay.
It's back-breaking work. The sub-zero temperature doesn't help. Cold and fatigue affect my coordination.
Whoa!
At 40 degrees below zero, frostbite can take hold in just 5 minutes.
I'm excited to know how... Man, my face is frozen.
It feels like 1,000 needles on my face. But the real danger is if my face goes numb. That would mean frostbite has taken hold.
So how long will an igloo last?
Once you build the igloo, it'll last pretty much the whole year until spring thaw.
So the final piece, eh?
Yeah, just really gently. Is that big enough for you?
Oh, it's great. I think so.
Yeah. You want?
Let me grab that knife for you.
James can complete an igloo in about an hour. But I can't imagine doing this in blizzard conditions.
You know, it's surprisingly warm in here. Yeah, even popping my head out there, it's noticeably different in temperature. Got so warm I actually had to take my hat off.
Time to move on. NhungHanhTrinhNguyHiem1 build igloos to keep warm, but in this region, there's another kind of ice house for keeping things cold. It's a freezer where locals store food throughout the year.
Wow.
And it's underground. But getting inside is no easy feat.
Look at this.
I descend a ladder 10 meters deep into the -2-degree freezer.
Wow. So this is ice and soil just mixed together, huh?
This is what permafrost looks like up close. These caverns were built over 40 years ago, using only shovels, pickaxes, and buckets.
It's a whole new take on a walk-in freezer.
James's brother Boogie Pokiak gives me a quick tour.
Fish that you see like this is for dog food.
And what, these are your storage units?
That's all storage units
Where's yours?
on the left. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, wow.
They store fish, whale, and caribou in this freezer. The food in just one of these rooms can feed a family for an entire year.
All the fish here.
A typical one of the 19 rooms in the ice house here. 3 hallways, 19 rooms, and each room is owned by a family.
Let's get out of here before we freeze.
I think we're all pretty hungry today.
Thank you.
James and his wife Maureen offer me a late lunch,
Fantastic.
and they tell me about the dangers of the summer.
So I hear you had a close encounter with a grizzly.
Yeah. It was about 100 feet away. And I remember saying, oh Lord, a grizzly.
The Mackenzie River Delta is prime habitat for grizzly bears.
This bear came at me and I fell down on my back. And I kicked him in the head and he bit me behind my knee.
So wait a minute, you hit him in the head? My
I fell
God!
down.
Oh, never get on the wrong side of you.
He bit me 3 times. He didn't maul me. He didn't use his claws.
Maureen is one of the lucky ones. Within the last 7 years, half of all bear attacks in this area have been fatal.
Very, very lucky.
After the 3 bites, I was bleeding, but no bones were broken. And when I stood up, I saw him running off in the distance. He went in one direction, and I went in the other. There's a grizzly bear out wandering around the tundra, and he's going, tough old bitch.
Like most locals, Maureen and James are able to laugh at the perils they face every single day. Maureen's cuisine hit the spot, but I've got more driving to do while there's still daylight.
To try with it.
Top! Okay, hello, boy.
Before I go, James says I should take a few minutes to try the most reliable method of travel in the Arctic.
Top!
Hey, boys. Good dogs.
James treats his dogs like family because he never knows when his life may depend on them.
So traditionally, this was probably the only way to get around.
You bet, yeah. That was the only mode of transportation our people used while they're hunting or trapping. It was all dog sled. You got your snow hook here, and this is your foot brake.
What's the words for left and right?
G for right and cha for left.
G-cha?
Okay, John, let's go.
Okay.
Right,
Oh, boy.
what's the snow? What's the foot brake?
Hey! G! Hey!
Man, the conditions are brutal out there. So glad to be back in the truck. At least this thing has heat.
It's pretty remarkable how -40, you hear it, and it really is only numbers until you actually experience it. Feeling the -40 degree temperature right in my lungs, oh my God. Immediate sensation of pain, and then your eyeballs start watering, and frost starts almost instantaneously in your nose hairs.
It's late in the afternoon and I'm approaching the most dangerous stretch of my journey, where the road passes over the Beaufort Sea. I've just made the transition from the frozen river water to the frozen sea. For the last 30 or so kilometers, the conditions will be extremely unpredictable. I feel like I could crash through the surface at any time. The ocean salt water doesn't freeze as easily as the fresh water in the Mackenzie River. So it's more likely that the ice will break out here. Road crews have to keep a close eye on the ice, and so do I. Now you gotta remain alert at all times. I've got to be very wary of cracks in the ice. Tidal movements create big cracks in the ice road.
just pulled over to take a look at some of these ice cracks.
Waves, tides, and wind cause jagged formations called pressure ridges, like this one.
Now, those are formed by tidal movements underneath the Beaufort Sea. Yeah, we're still getting tidal movements that are moving in and out.
These pressure ridges can form on the road at any time, ranging in height from 1 to 4.5 meters. Running into a pressure ridge could disable my vehicle, or even worse, send me under the surface.
It's much deeper here, and if I go through the ice now, well, I'll be heading straight to Davy Jones's locker.
Only 14 kilometers left on my journey along the ice road. But the constant threat of catastrophe makes it seem much longer. The road is always changing. 1 kilometer is bumpy and surrounded by pressure ridges. The next is stark and featureless. I stop to get an up-close look at what I'm facing. Even after all this time, the extreme cold is still jarring.
Take a look at this. You can actually see the cracks in the ice, and if I pour a little water on it, you should be able to hear it crack.
As the water breaks apart the surface, I wonder if I should hightail it back to the truck. After only seconds of exposure, I feel like the cold is eating away at my skin.
Me, my face is frozen! Now, when driving on the Beaufort Sea section of the ice road, you've got to really stay alert because the cracks are far more severe, like that one. That was about a 6-7 inch wide crack. Wow.
Pressure ridges and cracks are everywhere. Reminders of the restless waters below. When the wind picks up, visibility quickly drops to zero. The road narrows to 4.5 meters. It's hard to avoid snowdrifts. There are no trees and there's no life as far as the eye can see. This is a frozen wasteland. Only a few kilometers to the end of the road now. And finally in the distance, the hamlet of Tuck. It really does look like the end of the world. It's been a tense ride, so I decided to blow off some steam and celebrate my success.
Now, I've been feeling this really strong urge to do a donut, so I pulled over, and there's really nothing all the way around it. There's really no major snowbanks for me to hit, so a perfect whiteout. Don't do this at home, kids. It's silly, it's immature, and yes, I am feeling like I'm 12 years old, so. Yes, the 12-year-old boy in me.
As I roll into Tuk, I'm closer to the North Pole than the continental United States. I pass a graveyard and a church, reminders of the hardship and hope of daily life in the Arctic. About 1,000 residents live here. It's remarkable that anyone can survive the brutally cold winters. But they persevere, using a combination of Inuvialuit traditions and modern technology.
The ice road is a vital link for the people of Tuktoyaktuk. The winter is the only time of year that they can get their supplies. Otherwise, they're flying or boating their supplies in.
But the ice road might bring a much different future to the people of Tuk. Oil companies believe that up to a quarter of the world's untapped oil and gas reserves lie deep under the ice near Canada's Arctic Circle. This small community could be the doorway to those reserves. And none of this would be possible without the ice road. I traveled 190 kilometers over the frozen Mackenzie River and constantly shifting Beaufort Sea. I faced cracked and jagged ice, blinding snow, and negative 40-degree wind gusts that hit me like a slap in the face. But for the people who live up here, it's all part of the daily survival in one of the harshest environments on the planet.